Should I start?
Hey,
All
y'all.
right.
This is Simmy Hundal. This is the first program that we've done here that I'm trying out here. It's a virtual pitch by Tarun, who is representing Spark Spaces, an EV charging station, plus commercial real estate, plus hospitality business that he'll dive into in just a minute. Before we do that, though, I want to share the reason why we're here today, more broadly speaking. And that's one, to support founders and startups. That's the primary purpose. And the secondary is to share opportunities that I think are worth investing in, whether that's time, expertise, connections, or money. My background, I've done IT development and implementation, consulting, and then I started a business 5 years ago with my family in the finance/insurance space. We have an independent insurance practice called Fenix Risk Management for small businesses and individuals. Nitish, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hey guys, Nitish Basandra here. I currently lead our corporate strategy, M&A and corp dev practice at BetMGM, which is a sports betting and technology company. I've joined about 3 or 4 months ago, and previously I was doing something similar at the NFL for about 8 years, and just kind of leveraged my finance experience to get into the next gig. So excited to help today.
Cool, thanks, man. Hans?
Hey everyone, my name is Hans Yadav. I've been a technologist for decade plus, programming product, currently with a crypto firm right now, doing product for them. So again, super excited to hear the pitch and see how I can be helpful.
Thanks, Nitish and Hans. Tarun, the floor is yours.
Yeah, awesome. My name is Tarun. I am the CEO and co-founder of Spark Spaces. My background is fairly vast, ranging from almost a decade's worth of hospitality experience, ranging from managing operations, restaurant opening, hotel openings, and then went over to the EV charging space in 2017 and kind of worked my way through there because I had a really traumatic experience that kind of triggered everything to where I feel like I'm the right person to fix the problem that we'll be explaining today. Awesome. Cool. And then let me open up deck and then I can share my screen.
Cool, man.
Cool. Sweet. So at the end of the day, charging has been something that is starting to catch on. We're seeing more and more EVs grow in, especially Houston, San Antonio, Austin, and then a lot of other spaces. I know a lot of other states are around the country. We have a lot of backing from the government as well as local backing as well. And we're trying to figure out what it takes to make the experience better. And so my name is Tarun. I'm the CEO at Spark Spaces, and we're here to kind of capitalize on that 40-minute waiting session that EV drivers take when they charge their car. The question is, what do they do normally during this time? They actually end up sitting in their car or roaming around the space that they're not familiar with, or sitting in a space that they're like, now what? Like the connection, it's very disconnected, or they just end up sitting in their car. And so at the end of the day, it's like, how do we capitalize on that 40 minutes? And our solution is building an end-to-end EV charging experience where the person drives into a location and leaves a location, Spark Spaces is here to curate a really good experience that tackles personalized hospitality, curated space, localized food and beverage, and charging that actually works. And so when we look at our first location, we have a space out in Austin, Texas that we're finalizing on that kind of can bring that solution where we have EV charging on the photo on the left-hand side. You have the EV charging station, you walk 30 feet, and then our space is built into the building to where you have a really nice view, natural lighting, open floor plan where we're building in nap pods, comfortable furniture, as well as a bodega style food and beverage offering. What's interesting is that we want to kind of take we compare ourselves to the Amex Centurion Lounge experience, but for the EV driver. And the big question here is like, what does a build that cost? This looks really expensive, and this looks like something that has a long rate of return. However, what's interesting is that we see that total build out cost is roughly 1.2, ranging from food and beverage, utilities, the infrastructure, the charging, as well as rent and OpEx cost. If we have 500 sessions a week, we could roughly net $480,000 a year, as well as bring in $230,000 a year if we bring in 400 guests through our doors, which roughly ranges $12 per check size, which is actually market standard. And then we have the opportunity to provide ad space within our chargers, so we can advertise local businesses, local restaurants, and have the ability for them to showcase their chops when it comes to what they have to offer at our space. And then also, this actual price breakdown doesn't include OpEx expenses, B2B sales, and we are actually operating a coffee shop on the first floor when it comes to this space that we're working on. When we look at everything, we can make roughly 1.9 million bucks when it comes to revenue, and that almost takes care of all the entire build-out costs. This is after the first year. And when we look at the concept validation, a lot of the times everyone is like, "Hey, why are you bringing hospitality with charging? Charging is already done. It's super quick. What if it increases in speed?" However, when we look at the infrastructure today, we're seeing that the whole entire infrastructure is getting built for the cars that are able to take the charge. And so we see that NetCharge in San Diego is doing something very similar, but with Taco Bell. Starbucks wants to implement this in their route in Seattle to LA. And then BP Pulse is launching out their Giga Hub EV fast charging hubs next to the airports. And so we see a lot of these concepts popping up, but nothing in Texas as of now. So we're pushing and focusing on the first mover adoption in Texas, and have the ability to focus on Texas for the next couple of years. When we look at competition, we have Tesla working at the Kettleman location. Starbucks is doing the Seattle location. Electrify is focusing in San Francisco. Stack Charge is in Bakersfield, and then NetCharge is in San Diego. So all these they're all focusing on like Washington and California locations, whereas we're focusing in the state of Texas. Market size is massive, and it's just growing and growing on an annual basis. In 2022, we're looking at our market size ranging from, for the commercial space, 1.2 trillion. So we're combining three areas that are really important: is the commercial real estate space, the EV charging space, and hospitality. All three massive industries are growing annually, and which we're able to bring a total addressable market to 146 billion, which is massive. When looking at why now, a lot of people are like, "Hey, you're fairly early to the market." But what's interesting is we're actually building this for tomorrow rather than for today. And so we're testing it for today to ensure that tomorrow is successful. And so where we are the golden standard for EV charging. And with a projected of 35 million EVs by 2023, the US is actually going to need 470 charging points every day for the next 8 years. We're nowhere close to that. And so we need to be able to push that and have the ability to get working charging stations and an experience built out. When it comes to the commercial real estate space, COVID was like a blessing in disguise for us, where a lot of office spaces, a lot of Class A spaces have been are now vacant because businesses have pulled out from it because they didn't need it at that time because no one was going to work. And so by 2050, we're expecting to reach 124 billion square feet in the US when it comes to commercial building floor space, which is a lot of opportunity as well. When we look at our roadmap, it's a fairly clear roadmap where we're able to bring out our first location by Q3 of 2023, our second location within Houston at Q2 of 2024, and then by Q1 of 2027, we're looking at 50 new locations. And in total, we're looking at 20 locations by Q1 of 2021, and then 50 locations by 2027. We want to focus on Texas because we have the distance in Texas to kind of tackle. Traction has been really great. We have 51 paid sessions within our pilot program at the Ion. We just installed a charging station there, and we wanted to build out a frictionless customer experience. We've gotten 25K invested into the company year to date. We're doing case study development with UNT Hospitality and UT's MBA program. And also we found that first location, which has been really amazing. And we're getting really strong partners from that. And also having the ability to finalize our charging and software partners. We have a really well built out team. What's really cool is that our primary background is hospitality. We've all been in the industry for 10 years each. And we've been through build outs of hotels and restaurants, taking care of vendors. We've built menus, focus on how to make a place very sustainable focused, and then also tackle the electrification and mobility and on a large scale. We're looking for head of construction, head of real estate, head of marketing, and also our flagship operators. And we have a really supportive advisory team that's helping us with like really nitty-gritty problems that need a little bit of expertise to solve. We're looking at 2.7 million. We're looking for an ask of 2.7 million for a 10 to 12 month runway. A lot of the main breakdown is going to be our flagship location and also hiring. We need to build a solid team to kind of to properly build out our flagship location and kind of scale the branding to other locations and just do copy and paste, which requires which requires solid R&D and legal and marketing. My name is Tarun, and we're here to fix the problems that we'll be encountering tomorrow. Thanks.
Thanks, Tarun. Strong presentation. FYI, for those outside of Houston, the ION is one of the go-to startup organizations in the city of Houston. Has a beautiful glass building in downtown Houston and strong connections to different investors. Hans, Nitish, either of you want to start off with clarifying questions?
Sure, I can kick it off. Tarun, thanks for the presentation. I thought it was really good. Can you just talk a little bit about how you guys source the location for the flagship location? And when you just think about like share of mind, share of wallet, you talked about 30 feet to get to the hospitality space. Yeah. What else is around that area that could, I guess, like cannibalize whatever projections you're having for all the non-EV revenue?
So a lot of the areas around our location are like Cava. So Cava is around there as well. You have a couple of lunch spots, but we're really not worried about that due to the fact that we would specifically advertise towards like Capital Factory, which is across the street, and then also all the office buildings around the area, and kind of give them another option to where they could actually relax and have their lunch during that time. And because we're operating a coffee shop on the first floor, we have the ability to take those guests and send them upstairs to have lunch if they want to.
Piggybacking off of that question regarding your location. So it sounds like you guys are installing the charging ports themselves, right? Or are you looking for spots that already exist and you're building around them?
So we are doing, so I just want to take a quick step back. So when we look at site selection, we're really specific. So I've done roughly $250,000 in site selection when it comes to products beforehand. So like we need to ensure that there's enough of power coming to the building, enough of power getting distributed within the building, as well as Wi-Fi connectivity, as well as obviously natural light is a huge component for us as well. But when we look at this building is a platinum LEED certified building that is actually that had a data center in the building. So we're good for power, good for sustainability focused kind of owners. And then the area that we're in is really heavily densely populated, so it kind of works in our favor. Did that answer your question? Sorry, I feel like I rambled off a second there.
No, it sounds like when you guys are looking for a particular location, you are considering your power costs, which indicates to me that you are indeed building out the charging infrastructure in addition to the amenities around it.
Exactly. So we're building out the charging infrastructure. So that's where essentially we're building out our own network at the end of the day.
And Random question. So I'm not super familiar with like EV charging, but as I understand it, like there are different types of charging stations depending on your car. Like for example, Tesla's proprietary. I'm not really familiar with the other one. So like with your charging station, you effectively are still competing with the other charging stations that are going to be built or already exist.
So technically, yes, but we are EV agnostic. So what's cool is that Tesla just launched their CCS to Tesla adapter. So we are going to be buying a lot of those in bulk to provide to our users. And our locations will be staffed during business hours. And so any questions that the drivers have, we can answer them.
I got a quick question, Tarun. How do you guys think about like payback for the first location and then like ongoing store rollouts? Is there any like operating leverage you guys would have like on the back end or tech costs or anything like that as you scale?
So we're looking at a payback for this first location in like a year and a half after build out. And what's really interesting is that like the expectation here is going to be if we do really well here, then we'll actually go to the landlord and talk to him about having all their other locations with us built into those locations. And so instead of us raising money to build out our location from scratch, we have the ability to say, hey, because we've done really well for this first one, let's go into other ones in perpetuity, kind of figuring out, hey, you have a space that you're not able to lease. Cool, we know what we can do with that space. And a couple years from now, we'll end up buying locations, but I'm not worried about that at the moment.
Got it. So you said that you had like 10 months runway with the fundraise. Is the idea then to fund future store locations to work like through some type of like arrangement with the landlord, or would you need to go back out and maybe get like institutional funding or whatever it is?
So we would work with the landlord to make sure that we're all negotiated properly, but we'll actually go out and do debt financing on all the locations. I just want to do a seed round and a Series A round, and then call it a day for venture, and finance it through our own revenue at that point.
Got it.
Along those lines, have you considered doing debt financing right now for the first location? Or why are you going VC right now?
So right now, the reason why we are not doing debt is because we have no assets on the books, and there's nothing to leverage on or to use as collateral for our first location, and so that's why we're trying to do VC or family office funding to get this, or at least half of the funding round get done completed by venture or family, and then from there, then we can leverage debt financing for the other half.
Another clarifying question, what portion of EV charging is done outside of a person's residence or their workplace? Do you know what that split is?
Yeah, so roughly around 80% of EV drivers charge at home, but the problem is that now a lot of the times they have to go out of the way to charge on a public realm, but they now we're seeing home utility costs skyrocketing. And so we're trying to leverage that as a huge factor for us to be like, hey, like on your way home, charge at smart spaces, grab a bite to eat, and have the ability to go home with a full charge. And where you don't have to go charge at home. And then also the homeowner has to invest roughly like $3,000 to get a charger plus tied in to their electric box properly, because they have to do 240-volt outlet and then plug in their charger, which is a stupid amount of money for a homeowner. And then when we look at apartment dwellers, there's like 1 to 2 chargers in a parking lot, and a lot of them are taken most of the time. And so people have to go out of the way like at weird hours of the day to go charge to ensure that their next day is fine.
Thanks for that clarification. I wanted to go a little bit deeper on sort of like the persona and the actual type of user that's like going to be using your facility. So you mentioned that there is a world where drivers that, have their electric vehicle opt not to charge their vehicle in their own home. Instead, they would drive a little bit to either your location or somewhere else to charge. So yeah, could you talk a little bit more about like the type of person that would be using this type of facility? Because inside it looks like you have like workspaces and nap pods. So yeah, like to look.
So there's
Tarun, just on the back of that, like, how did you validate that? Was that like through customer research? Like, was that through, I guess, the concept validation exercise, looking at other locations with EV charging stations? How did you guys think about that?
Yeah, so two answers to that question. On the validation side, I did a survey earlier on in the whole Spark Spaces, like probably a couple of years ago. It might have changed, but the data is fairly consistent. And also, if you go to plugshare.com, everyone reviews about their charging experiences, and you could see issues over issues about this charge is not working. I'm in my car, I don't know what to do, kind of issues that came about. And then when it comes to Hans, what was your question again? Sorry.
My question was like just the persona or the type of person that would be using this. Like, what's their
there's three personas. So one persona is the driver who goes through a city and looks for a charging session through the city that is traveling from city to city. Or as well as the same thing where they're starting at once in Austin and going to Houston. That's one persona. The second persona is actually the driver who lives in an apartment and doesn't have direct access to charging. And then also the third persona is hotel guests as well as valet services. So in total, there's four personas, but we're really focusing on the everyday EV driver persona to where they don't have to go out of their way to charge. They come to us throughout their day, whether it be multiple times a day or once a day. I mean, if you look at it, the what's it called, like the Geico, the insurance, the person who's actually going and looking at sites, they would use our space as a mechanism to work in our space, as well as to charge up for space if you drive an electric car. The percentage is super small, but I think if we have more of these locations, we could persuade Geico and all these other insurance companies to transition into EVs and use our services. But like that's just in a future world that I'm not worried about right now.
Tarun, I'm impressed you kept up with this 3-on-1 tag team. We're running out of time right here. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and offer my concluding thoughts. I love to see the startup in the energy capital of Houston working towards the future of EV charging. I do, and I'm really interested to hear how you guys progress. I am interested to see how you compete with Starbucks or say the Buc-ee's of the world. For those outside of Texas, Buc-ee's is like a high-end gas station. Think of everything that you want in a gas station, it actually existing, it's Buc-ee's. I wonder if they're gonna enter the charging market.
So do you mind if I interject super quickly?
Sure.
So Buc-ee's and Tesla's partnered, they've partnered already. And so you have a bunch of Buc-ee's with Tesla chargers on them. But the problem is that those chargers are on the corner part of the lot. So this morning driving from Houston to Austin, I stopped at a Buc-ee's. I saw a guy waiting outside of his car charging, and it was like 58 degrees. So it's like, that's, I think, a really valuable use case for us as well. So yeah, fair. That was just a quick point.
For those outside of Texas, 58 degrees is cold by our standards, FYI.
Yes. Yeah.
Nitish, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, thanks for the presentation, True. And I think this is a super fascinating space. Wish I knew more about EV charging stations, but I think the idea of like multi-purpose spaces is pretty interesting. And to me, I view this as like more expansive than those like single offerings from a Starbucks or Taco Bell. It's a lot more. So definitely excited to see how you guys progress. And I think one area that I would love to learn more about is kind of average check sizes. And I noticed you guys talked about like $3.33 per user right now, but just really understanding how that bridges to the $12, obviously over time with more revenue opportunities, but kind of proving that out I think is kind of the big opportunity in my point of view.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thanks, Nitish. Hans?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tarun, for the presentation. Really, really nice. Again, as Nitish said, very fascinating space, something that I myself have not really thought about, but I can definitely see value. My parents have a Tesla. They go on road trips all the time. I'm sure they would love benefiting from a nice space that they can hang out and chill while their car is being charged. But yeah, I'd also be more interested in other ways to like potentially bring in revenue, like opening up the space towards non-EV people. What does that look like? Does that increase overall check size in some way to offset maybe the small market that exists? Although obviously it's still growing as more EVs hit the market. But yeah, all in all, awesome work. Thank you so much for taking our questions. And I'm really excited to see where you guys go with it.
Awesome. Me too, man. Yeah, no, it's been bothering me since 2017, and so I'm here to tackle this problem.
That's cool, Tarun. And would you like to say any last words, last few things before we wrap up?
I appreciate everyone's time. It's been extremely difficult to try to see where we fit in the grand scheme of things. And so I think the biggest thing I need help with in regards to kind of seeing where we fit is like finding out the type of investor who would be a good fit for us is something that I am struggling with, and I think with y'all's expertise that can kind of help a little bit of guidance on that. But at the end of the day, yeah, no, it's cool. I know my business, and I think hopefully that persona spies within the deck. And yeah, we're here to be the golden center for EV charging.
That's awesome, Tarun. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I wish you the best of luck. Thanks, gentlemen, for joining.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Appreciate it.